Hi, welcome to my identity text. My name is Elizabeth Lampkin. My family has looked into our history for a while, and I have a good idea of how our family came to the United States. I am mainly British, Irish, French, and German. One of my French ancestors on my dad's side was named Jacques Fontaine. Jacques had a tragic early life and ended up witnessing his parents being murdered in his front yard. He met a woman named Anne Elizabeth Boursiquot, who I was partially named after. They were Protestants in France during a time where this was quite dangerous, so a little after Jacques proposed to Anne, they fled for their lives to England. Since they were not married, they could not live in the same house, so Jacques stayed with a wealthy man in town and Anne lived nearby. The wealthy man had a sister who was quite enamored with Jacques. She wanted to marry him and knew her brother was sweet on Anne. So she went to her brother and they decided the brother would try to convince Anne to marry him instead of Jacques, so he could be with Anne and his sister could be with Jacques. Jacques found out the plan and went to see Anne. We do not know the exact words said, but we do know Jacques told Anne if she would rather marry the wealthy man, then Jacques would not hold it against her. Anne refused to marry the wealthy man and decided to stay with Jacques. They were married in a little church that still writes of their love story in the bulletins on Sunday. Jacques began work as a cloth maker and would stitch fabrics and clothing together in a French style that he had learned. This style was much more comfortable than most English styles, and so it became very popular. The other cloth makers were not pleased with Jacques stealing their business and placed threats against Jacques and Anne. They were forced to flee England and ended up coming to the United States. The Scottish ancestor on my mother's side was named Mary Campbell. She was a member of the Campbell clan and lived in Edinburgh, Scotland. She was born on June 2, 1690. When she was 14 years old, she married Michael Woods, who lived in Ireland. We do not know for certain why she chose to marry an Irishman, but we do know that in 1692, the Glencoe massacre occurred. Major Robert Campbell was one of the commanders and leaders in this attack. So, most likely the Campbell clan was feeling tension from other clans, and Mary may have wanted to get away from Scotland. Michael and Mary came to live in Dunsany Castle in Ireland. They did not own the property and were most likely just workers who were allowed to stay on the grounds. Records show that Mary gave birth to 14 children in this castle. Their names were Archibald, Michael, Hannah, John, Magdalene, George, Margaret, William, Richard, Samuel, Robert, Martha, Andrew, and Sarah. We do not know the exact reason why, but in 1725, Michael took Mary, all their children, and moved to Virginia, where he would later die in 1762. I know less about another Scottish ancestor from my father's side that came over to America. I know that they were originally a MacGregor and a member of the MacGregor clan. I also know that the MacGregor clan was in a feud with the Campbell clan, and that started when the chief of the MacGregor clan was killed by the Campbell clan. The wife of the chief was so heartbroken by watching her husband be killed that she wrote the poem Greagal Cree, which translates to Beloved Gregor, and is said to be, by some, the greatest poem ever written in Britain. Some now sing it as a lullaby. It goes, "Many a night, both wet and dry, weather of the 7 elements, Gregor would find for me a rocky shelter, where I would take refuge. Great darling from the Daman folk, they let your blood yesterday, and they put your head on an oaken stake, near where your body lay. I would be glad to be with dear Gregor, guarding cattle in the glen, instead of with the big barren Dalloch, white silk around my head. While the young wives of the town serenely sleep tonight, I will be at the edge of your gravestone, beating my 2 hands. I climbed into the upper chamber and lay upon the floor, and I would not find my dearest Gregor at the table in his place." On the left is the Scottish Gaelic translation, which is the original version, and is the version that is usually sung when a mother sings a lullaby. The MacGregors fought against the Campbells, who had sided with the British in the Battle of Culloden. After the defeat, my ancestor moved to America after not being able to stand seeing his Scotland part of Britain. Later on down the line, my MacGregor ancestors in America would change their name to McGee. Here is my family now. There is my mom, Dana Lampkin, my dad, Adrian Lampkin Jr., my big sister Sarah, me, and our puppy, Charlie. My dad is the interim senior pastor at First Baptist Church in Bloomington. My mom is an itinerant teacher for the deaf and hard of hearing in Champaign. And my sister has her master's in conflict archaeology and is a historical interpreter in Mackinac City. It is truly amazing how much my ancestors had to travel so that we could call the United States home. Thank you for listening to my identity text and hearing about my family.